So today I am with Jérôme Petit, CEO for Africa for Bollore Logistique. Good morning, Jérôme.
Good morning.
First, Jérôme, maybe we can start with by a description of the trade relationship between Africa and Asia and the history of Bollore within it. How would you describe it?
Okay, so first to start maybe with a short company presentation. Bollore is a family-owned group in France, which is almost 200 years old, and we are involved in different sectors of activities, media and communication, electricity storage, but as well transport and logistics. So transport and logistics is, in terms of presence, the bulk of our activities, and that has been historically our foothold in Africa. But as well in Asia, and that's how we started actually in Japan in 1977, where we opened our first Asian offices. Since we have offices in Asia in 18 countries, with our regional headquarters for Asia Pacific in Singapore, and we employ globally across Asia about 6,000 people. In perspective, we employ in Africa 22,000 people in 48 countries. So there is a strong historical link between our Asia and particularly Japan organization with Africa. As I said, when we started in the 70s, one of the aims was to follow up, support both Japanese shipping lines going into Africa, but as well the start of the trading between Asia and Africa, which obviously at the time was dominated and really promoted by Japan, being for car, electronics, trading, and so on. So it was really the historical link between Japan and Africa for Bollore. I would say that things have changed at the early start of the year 2000, where somehow everybody saw the emerging economical power of China, which started to be extremely present into Africa, supported by public loans and infrastructure project and financing and so on, but as well efforts by private companies to come into these new markets as a developing market for them, typically for telecom with Huawei, which in a matter of a few years took most of the market share in these emerging markets from the usual Alcatel/Ericsson players. So we clearly, on our side as Bollore, saw a change, a shift from 2005 onwards, from Japan to Africa to China to Africa. And as of today, the trade from Asia to Africa and vice versa is clearly dominated in terms of volumes, in terms of number of participants, in terms of value of is dominated by the China to Africa trade. And Africa to China, as China is paying back part of its investment in terms of infrastructure and so on by getting natural resources, oil and so on from African countries. So we saw that shift. What has been very interesting for us with this continuous African focus in Japan has been to see over the last maybe 8-10 years, the renewed effort from the Japanese government and Japanese trading house to regain foothold in Africa. Clearly, there was a drive initiated by the government for the different TCAD, being in Japan or in Kenya and so on, which again showed the governmental interest to develop trade and investments into Africa with a good response from the African countries, which after 15 years or so of strong Chinese presence saw that there were Japan back in business, back as an opportunity for them to diversify their partnerships in Asia. And we are very pleased to see these Japanese trading houses, all the groups, the investment taking place, JICA and ODA going back into Africa. And we have been a regular participant in the last TCAD convention, and again, this recent forum, which is for us a strong signal that the Japan-Africa connection is back into it. What is as well very interesting for us, being a French group, has been the effort over the last few years to develop this Franco-Japanese partnership, how to be stronger together, to not fight, it's not the word, it's too strong, but to better cope with the Chinese investments and presence across Africa, be it on the trading, infrastructure, and projects. So we have been a strong supporter of his Japanese, Franco-Japanese joint efforts, joint cooperation to go back into the African market together, as we think that we will be stronger together than each country, Japan and France, separately.
So maybe when people talk about Africa, they really talk about still a couple of countries, not so many, not the majority of the 54 countries. Can you tell us the potential that you see in Africa that we will see growing within the next 5 or 6 years for Japan and France?
Obviously, as everybody knows by seeing a map of Africa, Africa is a huge continent with a huge distance. So people tend to bring back Africa to a couple of countries when it has a huge diversity, very much like Japan, part of Asia Pacific, and between Japan and Australia, that's a kind of distance we are facing as well in Africa. So there is an overall growth potential in Africa, but as well we see clearly for 2021-22 in a post-COVID period, some areas of growth and economy which will be particularly active. North Africa, which is of course a natural player for the development with a link to Europe and by its proximity, where we see a lot of Japanese companies coming for manufacturing and logistics operation as a way to enter the European market, but as well to serve the western side of Africa. We believe that Ivory Coast, which went through very peaceful elections, will resume as a big partner and as a big trading leader in the region, with really a strong recovery in terms of business. We will see as well the effect of oil and gas in a couple of countries. Typically in the south, Mozambique is going to be the next big gas producing countries, with a major project for Total, Exxon, Eni, into which Japanese companies are going to participate very actively, but as well on the other side, being in Mauritania or Senegal. So these will be the two big oil and gas area of focus. And then obviously we have to speak about Ethiopia, which is going to be potentially the big area of growth in the coming years. Ethiopia has been growing at a very steady pace, has engaged in a number of very effective and voluntary transformation of its economy, opening different sectors, promoting industry, creating industrial park, promoting as well the reach and depth of Ethiopian Airlines to have Addis Ababa as a hub, which has become very effective. It is becoming as well a political center, being the African seat for the African Union. Obviously, the very recent events of domestic policies, issues and infighting may jeopardize a bit or delay a bit these. We bet that Ethiopia is going to be one of the strong growth area in terms of economical senses. And as such, we opened our own Bollore subsidiary in March 2020, a few months back. Not the best of time with the COVID, but again, we have been in Africa for over 90 years. So there have been COVID, there has been Ebola, there have been many crises. So we were there before, we will be there after. And as such, with this kind of a long-term view, which again for us is important in the way we trade with Japanese company. We believe that Ethiopia is going to be a strong economical country for the growth of Africa in the next few years.
Maybe a last question about the nature of trade between Asia and Africa. So historically, of course, I guess it's raw material, it started like this. Do you see this flow changing significantly from now on with more finished good or semi-finished? Do you see a manufactured good from Asia going to Africa more? Do you see the flow change radically in the future?
Again, Africa is a continent, so their needs are broad and wide. So there is a huge inflow into Africa of consumer goods, and that's mostly coming indeed from China and more Southeast Asian countries, as and when the consumption power of African countries and population are increasing, they will tend to import and consume more and more. There are as well structural needs still in terms of infrastructure, in a broad sense, in which Japanese companies are quite involved. Roads, ports, railways, power generation. So that we believe will be still a strong requirement for the year to come. There are still huge needs in terms of telecom network. So there has been a slowdown in the 2019, 2020 as operator, which grew very quickly in the year before, deploying 3G and in some cases 4G, have now been going down a bit with COVID and preparing more for 5G. But telecom is going to be a big market. But as well, what we see is the potential of industrial transformation in Africa. Africa is rich of natural resources and poor in exporting manufactured goods. To give you an example, we export thousands of tons of cashew nuts from Ivory Coast, raw, still in their shells, and these cashew nuts are exported to Vietnam or India just to be taken out of the shells, and then the finished product is exported. Why can't we transform these cashew nuts in Ivory Coast? Typically, Ghana and Ivory Coast are the biggest world producer of cocoa. Only 5% of the cocoa which they export is transformed at origin. So we can repeat that list of potential transformation in many ways. Something for cotton, something for minerals, something for oil. And that would be for us really a driver of the transformation of Africa by creating more value locally, by promoting industrialization, by extracting more value from the value chain, and as well, very importantly, by creating jobs, which will be matching or meeting the growth of the population of Africa, which is in most of the country a double-digit base. So the need to have a sustained economy, creating jobs and creating value in the countries is paramount for the population, paramount for the government, and for stability politically and socially across Africa. As well, where we see a stronger interest if we combine this investment in infrastructure with the ability to transform and manufacture in Africa, plus the raising consumption power of the population. If we combine the three together, that should be the base of the development of the free trade agreement, which has been signed in Africa 2 years ago, which is the first. There are a lot of different trade agreements by regions in Africa, but this is the first Pan-African trade agreement. To give you an idea in terms of comparison, currently intra-Africa trade is only 12% of Africa trade. In comparison, intra-Europe is 60%, intra-Asia is around 50%. So 12% of trade of Africa is intra-Africa. Out of these 12%, 50% is out of South Africa. So the rest of the intra-African trade between countries is marginal. So if we invest in infrastructure, in transformation, in population development, with a good framework for trade facilitation, we believe that intra-Africa trade can be the big step for the future. And for us, we are present in 48 countries. Obviously, whatever will involve intra-Africa movement will be a key development for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.